The crystalline spires of the Galactic Council headquarters gleamed like a fractured star, orbiting the dying embers of a red giant. Inside its hallowed halls, the air was thick with ceremony, a suffocating quiet broken only by the soft rustle of flowing robes and the murmur of ancient tongues. Then the humans arrived, and everything changed. Ambassador Lillian Carter strode through the arched entrance flanked by her aides, boots echoing against the polished obsidian floor. The delegation from Earth wore sharp suits of muted tones, contrasting starkly with the elaborate garb of the other council members. The aliens watched with thinly veiled unease, their shimmering eyes narrowing at the humans' purposeful stride and unbowed heads. At the center of the vast chamber, beneath the radiant light of a suspended starstone, sat Rotarn of the Vornk, the council's chairperson. His ancient form, draped in translucent blue silks that shimmered like liquid light, exuded an aura of authority. He extended his spindly hands, fingers bent in a gesture known across the galaxy as the greeting of unity. Every species was expected to return the gesture, a sign of respect, of submission to the collective. Lillian stood motionless, her face impassive. Chairperson Rotarn, she began, her voice calm but unyielding, on behalf of the people of Earth, I thank you for welcoming us. We're honored to join this historic gathering. The room fell silent. Whispers slithered through the crowd like the rustle of dead leaves. They did not bow, hissed an avian-like delegate, her feathers rippling in agitation. No greeting of unity, rumbled another, his crystalline body humming with disapproval. Rotarn's expression hardened, his multifaceted eyes narrowing as he rose from his ornate chair. Ambassador Carter, he said, his voice carrying the weight of millennia, you have not performed the unity ritual. Such an omission is unprecedented. Lillian's lips tightened, but she did not falter. With respect, Chairperson, Earth values action over symbolism. We believe our contributions to the galaxy should speak louder than ceremonial gestures. A collective gasp rippled through the assembly. The Vornk elders' fingers twitched, the alien equivalent of a frown. These rituals are not mere gestures, Ambassador. They are the foundation of harmony among our peoples. Lillian took a step forward, her eyes scanning the room. Harmony or stagnation? Humanity has come to offer innovation, cooperation, and strength. We're not here to rehearse ancient traditions that no longer serve a purpose. Her words hung in the air like a live wire, sparking indignation. A towering amphibian diplomat slammed his webbed hand on his pedestal. This is arrogance. A blatant insult to the Council's unity. An insult? Lillian shot back, her voice slicing through the growing commotion. What's insulting is assuming that our worth is determined by how well we mimic outdated rituals. Earth offers more than polite obedience, we offer progress. Isn't that what this council needs? The room erupted into chaos. Voices overlapped, accusations flying as centuries-old tensions resurfaced. Among the crowd, a reptilian diplomat named Arlek observed silently, his golden eyes flicking between the humans and the outraged delegates. A faint smile curled his lipless mouth. Rotarn raised a hand, commanding silence. Enough. His voice echoed, the starstone above them dimming momentarily. He turned his gaze back to Lillian. Ambassador Carter, humanity's presence in this council is not a right, it is a privilege. If you refuse to honor the traditions that bind us, then perhaps you do not belong among us. Lillian held his gaze, her steel blue eyes unflinching. If the only way to belong is to abandon who we are, then perhaps you're right. A hush fell over the chamber, heavier than the silence that had preceded the humans' arrival. Rotarn's gaze burned with ancient authority, but beneath it lay something else, uncertainty. Your actions will have consequences, he said at last, his voice low and foreboding. This council will deliberate on the matter. Lillian inclined her head, her expression unreadable. Earth will be ready. As she turned and led her delegation out of the chamber, the murmurs of outrage swelled once more. Behind her, the alien elite whispered and schemed, but Lillian only smiled faintly to herself. Earth had just sent a message, loud and clear, humanity would not kneel. Outside the council chambers, Lillian's communicator buzzed with an urgent message from Earth's orbital defense network. An unidentified fleet had entered the Sol system. The galaxy watched as the council chamber descended into chaos, every species grappling with what humanity's defiance meant for the fragile equilibrium they had clung to for centuries. Across Earth's bustling cities and orbital colonies, however, one sentiment surged louder than the council's discontent: pride. Humanity had drawn its line in the stars, and the universe was listening. Ambassador Lillian Carter stood in her quarters aboard the UNS Horizon, Earth's flagship station just outside the Galactic Council's headquarters. Through the reinforced observation window, the red giant's fading light painted her face in hues of gold and crimson. She leaned against her desk, scrolling through reports on her datapad. Public reaction on Earth was clear. Support for the delegation's refusal to bow was near unanimous. But alien channels were aflame with outrage. "Anything new from Earth?" asked Commander Julian Ward, the Horizon's ranking officer, stepping into the room. His crisp uniform bore the insignia of Earth's fledgling interstellar fleet. Lillian shook her head. "Just the same. Public rallies, editorial pieces praising us for not selling our souls. The people back home are fired up." "And the council?" Ward leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. "Still debating," Lillian replied. "But Rotarn won't let this go. His pride was bruised, and that's dangerous." Ward's jaw tightened. "He's not the only one. We intercepted some chatter. One of the extremist factions, the Keepers of Purity, is calling for action against us. They're painting us as disruptors, barbarians who don't deserve a seat at the table." Lillian set down her datapad. "Let them talk. We're not here to play by their rules." Ward hesitated. "Talk is one thing, Ambassador. But these keepers, they've got resources, ships, and influence. If they act, it won't just be words." The conversation was cut short by the soft chime of Lillian's communicator. It was Arlek, the reptilian diplomat from the council. His elongated features filled the holographic display, his golden eyes glinting with quiet calculation. "Ambassador Carter," Arlek began, his voice smooth and deliberate, "I trust you've heard the murmurs." "I've heard the outrage, if that's what you mean," Lillian replied, her tone guarded. "Outrage, yes. But also intrigue." Arlek leaned closer to the camera, his scaled hand steepled in thought. "Not every species on the council is as enamored with tradition as the Vornk. Some of us see your defiance as refreshing." Lillian arched an eyebrow. "Refreshing? That's not the word I'd use to describe the council's response." Arlek's lipless mouth curved into a faint smile. "You underestimate the fractures within this so-called unity. For centuries, many of us have questioned the value of these rituals, these constraints. But fear keeps us silent. Your actions, however, have stirred something new." Lillian steadied him. "What are you saying, Arlek?" "I'm saying there are those within the council who might prefer a more practical alliance with humanity, if you're willing to be bold." Lillian's expression hardened. "I'm already being bold. What do you propose?" Arlek's eyes gleamed. "Not yet. But when the time comes, I'll ensure you hear of it first." The transmission ended, leaving Lillian with more questions than answers. She turned to Ward, who had been silently observing. "What do you think?" she asked. "I think you just got the attention of the council's internal dissidents," he said. "That could be good. Or it could blow up in our faces." Before Lillian could respond, the ship's alarms blared, cutting through the tense quiet. The comm system crackled to life with the voice of a junior officer. "Ambassador Carter, Commander Ward, we've got incoming. A small fleet is approaching our position, no identification codes, no response to hails." Ward's demeanor shifted instantly, years of military training kicking in. "What's their configuration?" "Mostly older frigates and a carrier. They're holding just outside the no-combat perimeter." Lillian's blood ran cold. "The Keepers?" "Most likely," Ward said grimly. "They're testing us." Lillian straightened, her expression steely. "Then let's not disappoint them." Minutes later, she stood on the command deck, the tension palpable. The Horizon's crew worked with precision, analyzing the unknown fleet. On the holographic display, the ships formed a loose formation, an intentional sign of defiance. Still no response to our hails, the communications officer reported. Ward turned to Lillian. If they fire, we'll respond. But if they're looking for intimidation, we need to show them Earth won't flinch. Lillian stepped forward. Activate the broad-spectrum channel. Let's send them a message. The officer nodded, and Lillian's voice carried across the void to the unidentified fleet. This is Ambassador Lillian Carter of Earth. You're violating Council protocols by entering a no-combat zone without clearance. Stand down and leave immediately, or face the consequences. For a moment, there was silence. Then, one of the frigates powered its weapon systems. Ward's voice was firm. They're calling our bluff. Then let's show them we're not bluffing, Lillian said, her tone ice-cold. Target their lead ship. Disable their weapon systems, but leave them intact. The Horizon's main cannon fired, a precise blast of energy that struck the frigate's weapons array. Sparks erupted across its hull, and the fleet immediately fell into disarray. Message received, Ward said dryly. But Lillian wasn't smiling. She knew this was only the beginning. As the fleet retreated, an encrypted message arrived from the Council. It was short, but chilling. The galaxy will not tolerate defiance. Prepare yourself. The echoes of the Horizon's warning shot reverberated far beyond the silent void. Across the galaxy, news of the skirmish spread like wildfire, fanned by the whispers of a growing resistance and the roars of outrage from the Keepers of Purity. For the Galactic Council, humanity's refusal to submit had escalated from a breach of decorum to an undeniable threat. Ambassador Lillian Carter stood at the heart of the Horizon's command center, watching as the intercepted frigates limped away from the no-combat zone. The frigate's damaged hull sparked faintly on the display, a sobering reminder that diplomacy had reached its breaking point. Around her, the crew worked with grim determination, every movement measured and precise. They're retreating, Commander Julian Ward confirmed, his voice clipped. But they'll be back. Lillian folded her arms, her gaze unwavering. And when they come, they won't just test our resolve, they'll test our survival. Ward frowned. We have the fleet strength to hold them off, but if the Council decides to sanction us, they could cut off critical trade routes, isolate us. Earth's not ready for that kind of long-term standoff. Which is why we need allies, Lillian replied. We're not here to make enemies, we're here to prove humanity belongs at that table, on our terms. Her communicator buzzed, breaking the tension. The screen lit up with a familiar face, Arlek. His reptilian features bore a sharp intensity, his golden eyes scanning the room behind her. Ambassador Carter, he began, his tone uncharacteristically urgent. I warned you that the Keepers wouldn't let this go unanswered. Their fleet's retreat was a feint. They're regrouping. Lillian's expression hardened. And the Council? Are they complicit? Arlek hesitated, his gaze shifting. Not officially. But the Keepers have sympathizers embedded in the Council, and Rotarn is losing control. They see your defiance as an opportunity to seize power. Lillian's eyes narrowed. What do they want? An excuse to escalate, Arlek said. If they provoke you into a full-scale conflict, they'll frame humanity as a threat to galactic peace. It would give them justification to unite the Council against you. Lillian exchanged a glance with Ward. And what about you, Arlek? Are you calling to warn us, or to hedge your bets? The alien diplomat's lips curved into a faint smile. Both, Ambassador. I believe in the need for change, but change requires survival. If humanity falls, so does the hope for a reformed council. I have no interest in letting the Keepers win. Then help us, Lillian said. You have influence in the council. Use it. I already have, Arlek replied. But if this escalates further, you'll need more than words. The Keeper's fleet is larger than what you saw today. Be ready. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Lillian with a hollow unease. She turned back to Ward. How long until the Horizon can deploy reinforcements? Ward grimaced. We've sent the call to Earth Command, but it'll take time to mobilize the rest of the fleet. We're on our own for now. Hours later, the Horizon patrolled the edge of the no-combat zone, its sensors scanning the surrounding void. The crew worked in tense silence, the weight of the standoff pressing down on them. Then, the alarm blared. Multiple signatures detected, called the tactical officer. Incoming fleet, 5 frigates, 2 carriers, and a command ship. No identification codes. Ward snapped to attention. The Keepers. Lillian stepped forward. Hail them. The comm officer opened the channel, and moments later, the hollow visage of a Keeper commander filled the screen. Its pale, insectoid features twitched with disdain as it regarded Lillian. Humans, the Keeper hissed, its voice grating like metal on stone. Your arrogance has gone far enough. Withdraw from Council space, or we will annihilate you. Lillian met its gaze with cold resolve. We don't bow to threats, and we don't run. Leave this space, or face the consequences. The Keeper tilted its head, an eerie imitation of curiosity. You mistake defiance for strength. We will show you the difference. The transmission cut, and the Keeper fleet began to move. The tactical officer's voice trembled as she called out updates. They're powering weapons. Charging energy projectiles. Ward turned to Lillian. What's the play? Lillian straightened, her voice calm but commanding. We hold our ground. Target their command ship, disrupt their chain of command. If we can scatter them, we might force a retreat. The Horizon surged into action, its advanced systems locking onto the enemy fleet. Beams of energy lanced through the darkness, striking the Keeper ships with precision. The frigates retaliated, their weapons raking the Horizon's shields. Shields holding at 70%, the tactical officer reported. Focus fire on their command ship, Lillian ordered. Cut the head off the snake. The Horizon's cannons roared, a concentrated volley of energy slamming into the command ship's engines. The vessel shuddered violently, its formation breaking as smaller ships scrambled to compensate. They're losing cohesion. Ward shouted. Now's our chance. Press the attack, Lillian said. Force them to retreat. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but slowly, the tide turned. One by one, the Keeper ships fell back, their formation disintegrating under the Horizon's relentless assault. Finally, the remaining ships fled into the void. As the crew cheered, Lillian stood silent, her gaze fixed on the tactical display. The victory was undeniable, but it felt hollow. Don't celebrate too soon, she said softly. This wasn't just a skirmish, it was a test. And we've shown them our hand. Ward nodded grimly. They'll be back, with more ships and more allies. Let them come, Lillian replied, steel in her voice. Earth doesn't bow. And we're just getting started. In the aftermath of the battle, an encrypted message arrived from an unknown source. It read, The Council is fractured. The time to strike is now. The battle had ended, but the war had only begun. Across the Galactic Council's far-flung territories, humanity's defiance spread like ripples across a still pond, disrupting the carefully cultivated balance of power. For the Keepers of Purity, this was no longer about enforcing tradition, it was about eliminating a threat. For humanity, it was about survival. Ambassador Lillian Carter stood in the dimly lit strategy room aboard the Horizon. Around her, holographic displays projected the latest intelligence. The Keeper fleet's retreat was a temporary reprieve, their ships had regrouped at a nearby staging ground. Her team analyzed every intercepted transmission, every movement, every whisper of their next strike. Anything new from Earth Command? She asked, her tone sharp but steady. Commander Julian Ward shook his head. Reinforcements are en route, but they're still days out. For now, it's just us. Lillian nodded, her gaze fixed on the pulsating dots representing the enemy fleet. The Keepers aren't going to wait. They'll attack again, and when they do, it won't be another test. They'll come for blood. Ward leaned on the edge of the table, his voice low. We need more than military might, Ambassador. We need the Council to split, fracture their support for the Keepers. Lillian sighed. Easier said than done. The Keepers thrive on fear. They've spent centuries reinforcing the idea that tradition is the glue holding this galaxy together. Our defiance is their rallying cry. Ward crossed his arms. Then we need to give the Council a reason to believe in something stronger than fear. Something practical. Lillian glanced at him, a faint smile tugging at her lips. You sound like a diplomat. I'm a soldier, Ward replied. But even I know you don't win a war like this with firepower alone. Hours later, Lillian stood before the holographic projection of the Galactic Council chamber. Her image flickered into the center of the vast hall, where the delegates had gathered for an emergency session. The murmurs that greeted her arrival were a mix of hostility and curiosity. Chairperson Rotarn's multifaceted eyes gleamed with barely concealed disdain. Ambassador Carter, I trust you have an explanation for your actions. Your fleet's aggression has jeopardized the stability of this council. Lillian didn't flinch. With all due respect, Chairperson, it was not humanity that violated the peace. The Keepers of Purity attacked our vessel unprovoked. A crystalline alien, its form shimmering with refracted light, interjected. And yet, it was your fleet that fired first. To defend ourselves, Lillian countered, her voice firm. Or would you have preferred we let them destroy us to satisfy your sense of decorum? Rotarn raised a hand, silencing the room. Your defiance of tradition has already sown discord. Now your actions threaten to escalate into full-scale war. Lillian stepped forward, her holographic image growing larger. Tradition didn't stop the Keepers from attacking us. Tradition won't protect the Council from their growing influence. If you want to preserve peace, you need to evolve, and fast. The room erupted into murmurs. Lillian pressed on. Humanity offers more than defiance. We offer innovation, strategy, and strength. But we won't submit to outdated rituals that serve only to preserve the status quo. A deep, guttural laugh echoed through the chamber. The Keeper representative, a towering insectoid, rose to its full height. Your strength is a facade. Your species is young, reckless, and unworthy of a place among us. The Council does not need your arrogance. It needs discipline. Lillian met its gaze with cold determination. Discipline isn't blindly following the past. Discipline is knowing when to adapt. The question is, can the Council do that? Or will it let the Keepers drag it into ruin? The chamber fell into uneasy silence. Then, a voice broke through. I agree. Arlek stepped forward, his reptilian features calm but resolute. Humanity's methods may be unconventional, but their actions have exposed a rot within our ranks. The Keepers have overstepped. If we do nothing, they will turn this council into their puppet. Rotarn's gaze narrowed. Councilmember Arlek, you tread dangerous ground. Perhaps, Arlek replied. But so does standing still while the galaxy burns. As the session dissolved into debate, Lillian ended the transmission, her image fading from the chamber. Back aboard the horizon, she exhaled slowly, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Ward approached. That was a risk. It's a risk we had to take, Lillian said. If we don't divide the council, the Keepers will unite them against us. Before Ward could respond, the tactical officer's voice crackled through the comms. Ambassador, Commander, we've got movement on the sensors. The Keepers' fleet is mobilizing. Ward's expression darkened. Looks like they're done talking. Lillian squared her shoulders. So are we. Get the crew ready. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. As the horizon prepared for battle, a new transmission arrived, encrypted and marked urgent. It contained detailed schematics of the Keeper's flagship and its vulnerabilities. The sender was anonymous, but the message was clear: the Keeper's strength is their weakness. Strike fast, strike hard, and the Council will see the truth. The galaxy teetered on the brink of war, its fragile balance cracking under the weight of conflicting ideologies. The Keepers of Purity, once an extremist fringe, now wielded influence that threatened to topple the Galactic Council itself. Against them stood humanity, defiant and unyielding, armed not just with technology and determination, but with a growing network of unlikely allies. The horizon hurtled through the void, its sleek form slicing past the crimson light of the dying star that loomed over the Galactic Council's headquarters. Inside its command center, the tension was palpable. Ambassador Lillian Carter leaned over the central console, studying the schematics of the Keeper flagship that had arrived in the mysterious transmission. "Whoever sent this knows their ships," Commander Julian Ward said, pointing to a highlighted section on the hologram. "If these schematics are accurate, their power core is vulnerable. A direct strike here would disable their entire fleet." "Disable, not destroy," Lillian noted, her tone deliberate. "That's important. We can't give the Keepers more fuel for their propaganda. The Council needs to see us as defenders, not aggressors." Ward crossed his arms. "And what if the Council's too blind to see reason?" "Then we make them see," Lillian replied, her voice resolute. She straightened, turning to the bridge crew. "Prepare the fleet. We're taking this fight to them, but we're doing it smart." The Horizon led the charge, its escort of Earth's finest ships moving in tight formation. Ahead, the Keeper fleet loomed, their jagged vessels bristling with weaponry. At the center was their flagship, a monstrous vessel adorned with ominous, spiked protrusions, its design a declaration of dominance. "Enemy fleet detected," the tactical officer reported. "They've locked weapons on us." "Hold position," Ward ordered, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. "They're baiting us," Lillian said. "They want us to fire first." "Not happening," Ward replied. "Let's see how they like their own tactics." The tension on the bridge was thick as the Keeper's fleet advanced. Moments stretched into eternity until, finally, the flagship opened fire. A searing beam of energy lanced through the darkness, narrowly missing the horizon. The battle had begun. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Ward barked. "Return fire, target their weapon systems." The void erupted into chaos as energy beams and missiles streaked across the battlefield. The Horizon danced through the barrage with practiced precision, its cannons firing in synchronized bursts. Lillian watched the tactical display, her mind racing. "They're protecting the flagship," she noted. "Their formation is tight, but if we break their defensive line, we can get a clear shot at the core." Ward nodded. "Agreed. Let's cut a hole." As the battle raged, a transmission from Arlek crackled through the comms. His holographic form appeared, battered but determined. "Ambassador Carter, the Council is in disarray," he said. "The Keeper's allies are trying to push through a resolution to brand humanity as a rogue faction. But some of us are fighting back." "Then fight harder," Lillian replied. "We're buying you time out here, but we can't hold them off forever." Arlek's eyes glinted with a mixture of admiration and urgency. "You're forcing their hand, Ambassador. If you can take down that flagship, it will shatter their narrative. The Council will have no choice but to act." The transmission ended, and Lillian turned back to Ward. "This is our moment." The Horizon surged forward, leading a daring assault. Flanking ships targeted the Keeper frigates, creating a gap in their formation. The Horizon exploited the opening, cutting through the chaos to face the flagship. "Target their power core," Ward ordered. "Full charge." The main cannon hummed, its energy building to a crescendo. The Keeper flagship unleashed a desperate counterattack, its beams grazing the Horizon's shields. "Shields at 30%, the tactical officer called out. "Hold steady," Ward commanded. "We've got one shot at this." Lillian gripped the edge of the console, her heart pounding. The cannon fired, a blinding beam of energy that struck the flagship's core. The impact was immediate and catastrophic. The flagship shuddered, its lights flickering as a cascade of explosions tore through its hull. Its weapons went dark, and the surrounding Keeper fleet faltered. "They're retreating," the tactical officer exclaimed. "The Keepers are falling back." The bridge erupted into cheers, but Lillian remained focused. "Give me a transmission to the Council." Minutes later, Lillian's holographic image once again appeared in the Council chamber. The delegates were in chaos, some shouting accusations, others demanding explanations. At the center, Rotarn glared at her with a mix of anger and resignation. "Ambassador Carter," he began, his voice laced with tension. "Explain yourself." "I don't need to," Lillian replied, her tone measured but firm. "You've seen the truth. The Keepers attacked unprovoked. They tried to manipulate this council into war, and we stopped them." Rotarn's gaze faltered. Around him, murmurs of agreement began to ripple through the assembly. Arlek stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. "The ambassador is correct. The Keepers have overstepped, and their influence has corrupted the council. It's time we abandon the shackles of tradition and embrace a new era." The chamber fell silent. Rotarn hesitated, his pride battling his reason. Finally, he spoke. "We will deliberate. But know this, Ambassador, if you have lied, there will be consequences." Lillian inclined her head. "I wouldn't expect anything less." As the transmission ended, Lillian turned to Ward. Before she could speak, the tactical officer interrupted. "We're picking up a new signal. It's from Earth Command, encrypted priority. They say there's been an attack on Earth." The news hit like a thunderclap. Earth had been attacked. In the shadow of their victory over the Keeper fleet, humanity faced a chilling reminder of the stakes. The Keepers of Purity had struck not at the fleet, but at Earth itself, hoping to break humanity's resolve. Instead, they ignited a fire that would burn through the heart of the galaxy's corrupt traditions. The horizon raced toward Earth, its engines pushed to their limits. Ambassador Lillian Carter stood at the command deck, her jaw tight, her mind whirling with possibilities. Beside her, Commander Julian Ward scanned the latest reports, his expression dark. "Preliminary data suggests it was a hit-and-run attack," Ward said. "Smaller ships, likely Keepers sympathizers. They targeted orbital stations and a few key defense platforms before retreating." "Casualties?" Lillian asked, her voice sharp. "Minimal," Ward replied. "Earth's defenses held, but barely. It's clear this was a message." Lillian exhaled slowly, her shoulders stiffening. "And they expect us to respond emotionally. To lash out. We won't give them the satisfaction." Ward glanced at her. "So, what's the play?" "We fight smarter," she said. "This attack wasn't just about Earth, it was meant to fracture the Council's perception of us. If we retaliate blindly, we prove the Keeper's narrative. But if we turn this into an opportunity, we can reshape the entire galactic order." Hours later, the horizon entered Earth's orbit. The damage was visible, charred wreckage floated among the stars, a stark contrast to the blue and green jewel below. Lillian and Ward stood on the observation deck, their reflections etched against the cracked remains of an orbital defense station. A soft chime broke the silence. Lillian turned to the holoprojector as a live feed from Earth Command appeared. General Miriam Hargrove, a stoic woman with piercing eyes and a presence that demanded respect, greeted them. "Ambassador Carter, Commander Ward," Hargrove began. "The attack has been contained, but this cannot go unanswered." "It won't," Lillian replied. "But not the way the Keepers expect. General, I need your support. We're taking this fight to the Council itself." Hargrove raised an eyebrow. "The Council? After this attack, half the population would rather see us bring warships to their doorstep." "And that's exactly why we won't," Lillian said. "The Council is divided. The Keepers are losing support, but they still hold sway over the undecided. If we can force them to confront their corruption in a way that exposes their hypocrisy, we can turn the galaxy against them." Hargrove studied her for a moment, then nodded. "You have my support, Ambassador. But understand this, if diplomacy fails, Earth will be ready." Days later, the Galactic Council convened for an emergency session. The chamber was tense, the delegates divided into clusters of whispered conversations. At the center, Rotarn presided, his multifaceted eyes betraying his unease. Lillian's holographic image materialized in the chamber. Her voice cut through the murmurs, calm and resolute. "Chairperson Rotarn. Esteemed delegates. I stand before you not to defend humanity, but to confront the truth. Rotarn's gaze hardened. The truth, Ambassador, is that Earth was attacked as a consequence of its own provocations. Lillian met his glare with icy determination. No, Chairperson. The truth is that the Keepers of Purity orchestrated an unprovoked assault, not just against Earth, but against the principles this council claims to uphold. A wave of murmurs swept the chamber. Arlek stepped forward, his reptilian form towering over his peers. The Ambassador is correct. The Keepers have acted in direct violation of the Council's charter. Their actions are not the defense of tradition but an abuse of it. The Keeper representative hissed, its insectoid body quivering with fury. You dare accuse us? Humanity is the aggressor. They rejected our ways, disrupted our unity. They rejected subjugation, Arlek interrupted, his voice sharp. And in doing so, they revealed what many of us have known for centuries: the Council's traditions have been twisted into chains. It's time we break them. The chamber erupted into chaos as factions argued, some supporting Lillian and Arlek, others clinging to the Keeper's rhetoric. Rotarn raised his spindly hand, commanding silence. This council was founded to preserve peace, he said. But peace cannot exist without order. If we abandon tradition, what will bind us together? Progress, Lillian replied. The galaxy doesn't need outdated rituals to thrive. It needs cooperation, innovation, and mutual respect. Humanity stands ready to lead by example, but we won't do so by kneeling. Her words hung in the air, a challenge and a promise. Slowly, the murmurs shifted. Delegates who had hesitated now voiced their support. The tide was turning. Hours later, the council reconvened for a final vote. The resolution was clear: the Keepers of Purity would be disbanded, their members stripped of their positions and held accountable for their actions. Humanity's seat on the council was reaffirmed, not as a concession, but as recognition of their strength and vision. As the delegates filed out, Arlek approached Lillian's hologram. You've done the impossible, Ambassador. The council will never be the same. Neither will the galaxy, Lillian replied. And that's the point. Back aboard the Horizon, Lillian stood by the observation window, watching Earth grow smaller as the ship set course for new frontiers. Ward joined her, a rare smile on his face. Not bad for a species that doesn't bow, he said. Lillian smirked. We've only just begun. A final transmission arrived, its source untraceable. The Keepers were just the beginning. Others are watching, and they are far more dangerous.